So today, we're going to talk about a combination that's seriously set to reshape our digital world, the fusion of blockchain and cloud computing. Now, this isn't just a story about one technology replacing another. It's a much more interesting story about decentralization and how it's challenging and sometimes even joining forces with the giants of the web we use every day.
All right, let's get into it. First, we're going to dig into the problems with our current cloud setup. Then, we'll look at the rise of a whole new decentralized web. From there, you'll see how this shift is changing everything from data storage to raw computing power, before we wrap up with what it all means for the future.
So let's kick things off with the big question, right? The one that really sets the stage for this whole conversation. Why do we even need to change things in the first place? I mean, think about it. We rely on the cloud for pretty much everything, sharing photos, running huge companies, you name it. But all that convenience has a hidden cost. Because being so dependent on these big centralized systems, well, it opens us up to some really serious risks.
You know, the modern web, what we call Web 2.0, is built on a model that's really starting to show its age. When everything's centralized, it creates these giant, tempting targets for surveillance and for hackers. And if one single data center has a bad day, huge services can just get wiped offline for millions of people. The whole thing is built on an old security model where we have to trust big companies with our data, and that just feels outdated.
Okay, so if centralization is the problem, what's the fix? Well, we're not just talking about a little software update here. We're talking about a fundamental shift in the architecture, a whole new kind of internet.
And that's where Web 3.0 comes in. This is a huge leap. We're moving from Web 2.0, a read-write web where big companies own all the platforms, to Web 3.0, a read-write-own web. The idea is that users can actually own a piece of the protocol itself. This lets us have direct, trustful transactions with each other without needing a middleman. And the engine making this all possible? It's the blockchain.
At its core, Web 3.0 is all about separating the content from how it's presented, which gets rid of the need for those central servers. Just imagine an internet without a company taking a cut of every payment, or an internet where there's no single server to target with a massive cyber attack. That's the promise of this whole new decentralized foundation.
Okay, a web without central servers. Sounds amazing, right? But it brings up a really practical question right away. If there are no giant data centers from Amazon or Google, where does all the data actually go? Let's tackle that one head-on. Let's talk about one of the biggest parts of cloud computing, storage. How in the world can you replace a service like Dropbox or Amazon S3 in a decentralized world? Well, one of the key technologies here is called the Interplanetary File System, or IPFS. The easiest way to think about it is like one giant global BitTorrent swarm. See, instead of asking for a file based on its location, like a web address, IPFS finds content based on what it is. That's a huge switch, moving from location-based to content-based addressing. So here's the magic behind it. Any piece of content, a picture, a document, whatever, gets a unique digital fingerprint called a hash, and that hash becomes its permanent address. For anyone familiar with databases, you can think of this hash like a globally unique primary key for the content itself. It guarantees the file you get back is the exact one you asked for. So you're not asking one server for the file. You're shouting to the whole network, hey, who has the content with this fingerprint? As long as that file exists anywhere on the network, the link will work. No more broken links.
Okay, so we've got decentralized storage figured out, which is a massive piece of the puzzle. But that's only half of the cloud computing equation. What about the other half? What about processing power? How do you do heavy-duty calculations without renting space on some giant server farm?
This quote absolutely nails it. Just think about all the computing power sitting there doing nothing on millions of laptops and PCs all over the world. What if you could tap into that? What if we could create a shared economy for that power, where anyone can rent out their unused computer resources and actually get paid for it?
And hey, this isn't just a wild idea. Platforms like Golem are actually building this right now. Golem is creating a peer-to-peer network where you can rent out your computer's spare horsepower. And on the flip side, people who need a ton of power, say for CGI rendering or training an AI model, can lease it from the network. It's like a marketplace, but instead of being run by a big company, it's all managed on a blockchain to handle payments and make sure the work gets done fairly.
And the money side of this? It's huge. By cutting out the corporate middleman and creating a true free market, decentralized storage projects like Storage estimate you could see cost savings of up to 80%. Just think about that for a second. For startups, for researchers, for creators, that could completely change the game and unleash a whole new wave of innovation.
But hold on, the big cloud giants aren't just sitting around watching this happen. They're adapting. Big players like IBM and Microsoft are already offering something called blockchain as a service, or BaaS. This lets big companies tap into the power of blockchain, but on the familiar, centralized cloud platforms they already know and trust. It's a fascinating blend of the old world and the new.
So, we've looked at the problem with the centralized web, we've explored these new decentralized solutions for storage and computing, and we've even seen how the market is already reacting. So, what's the big takeaway here? What does this all add up to?
I think the most crucial thing to get is that this isn't about just one new technology. It's a whole new tech stack being built from the ground up. You've got platforms for storage, for computation, even for secure communications, and it's all powered by that foundational blockchain layer, like Ethereum. This is the new toolkit for building a more resilient, distributed, and user-owned internet. And that brings us to the final, big question. We're really at a crossroads here. Is this the beginning of the end for the huge, centralized cloud companies that run the internet today? Or will they just evolve, adopt all these decentralized tools, and absorb them into their existing empires? The very architecture of our digital world is up for grabs.
Hey, if you got something valuable out of this explainer, do us a huge favor and hit that like button, share it with someone you think would be interested, and subscribe for more deep dives into the tech that's shaping our world. Thanks so much for watching.